Hey guys, it's Ryan Hillman, founder of Sales Recruiting University, back with another weekly screenshot video. I wanted to walk you through this client who actually signed 6 reps in their first week and had 5 show up on Monday. And before they even had 5 show up on Monday, they had paid for our service. That's unusual, by the way, but it's still a good case study. And at a minimum, I want to walk you through the recruiting process that allowed them to do this if your goal is to maybe sign 5 or 6 people in a week time. By the way, they did this just in a few hours of work from their perspective, which is very unusual. To give you the averages, it typically takes a company cycling through 50 applicants, screening that down to 20 people that look decent, and taking them through the recruiting process to get to one rep that they hire. And that's usually a 10-hour, sometimes longer process just to hire one rep. And especially in a commission-based sales environment, or even a primarily commission-based sales environment like a lot of our clients, one rep is usually not all it takes. Usually need to get like 2, 3, maybe more reps, depending on your compensation and your opportunity and your sales cycle, onboarded to get one to stick and get up to quota. But anyways, here's exactly what this client did to sign 6 reps in 1 week and get 5 to show up on Monday. Let's first walk through what he said. Got like 6 for training on Monday. That was the first thing. Just a side note, this is a commission-based sales opportunity. There wasn't training pay in this opportunity. Reps are self-generating and closing their own deals. And so within an opportunity like that, there's typically attrition starting right away. It's just the nature of the beast. Now, if you had training pay or leads or that kind of thing where there's a bigger cash investment into the opportunity, you have better retention through the recruiting, onboarding, and kind of ramp up period for the reps. But in this case, they signed 6 reps, and this is just an assumption. I didn't check back on this, but probably 5 showed up for Monday, worst case 4. But they did this in only a few hours, which is really cool. He also said that one came with a $30K window job before he even started training, right? So they did this in their first week working with SRU, and one of the reps had experience and he just was transitioning companies and he had a project to submit. Now that's not common for our client, but that was one of the cool things that happened for this client. They paid for the service literally in the first week of recruiting, which is not always happening, but that was pretty cool. But the purpose of this video, how did they actually sign 6 reps in a week period within just a few hours? Okay, so they had a physical office, so they wanted to do things face-to-face. My personal favorite process, even for a localized company that's hiring localized reps in a face-to-face sales environment, right? So in this example, they're an outside commission-based sales force. They sell home improvement products and services, and they do things door-to-door. And so a lot of the times, clients like this, they come on board to our organization and they want to do things all face-to-face if they have an office. We're a face-to-face organization. I want to do my group interviews face-to-face. I want to do my final interviews face-to-face. That's just what makes sense. But me personally, especially over the last 2 to 3 years, I've come to like doing group interviews via Zoom, regardless of the sales model. Even for a localized company, if I have a localized or a physical office, I'm going to do group interviews via Zoom. At a high level, the reason is because my show-up rates for the group interviews are going to be better, typically 10, sometimes up to 20% higher, which is giving me more recruiting opportunity. As a side note, just because candidates don't show up to a group interview, final interview, or phone interview, it doesn't mean that they're a bad quality candidate. They have a lot of opportunities, so sometimes that just happens. Just like in a sales process, if you set 10 appointments over the next 3 days, not all of the prospects are going to show up. It doesn't mean you wouldn't have sold one of those prospects. They just didn't show up for whatever reason. So the same thing happens into recruiting. And so from my perspective, I want to get as many people through the recruiting pipeline as possible. And so even for a localized company in this case, I would prefer to do group interviews via Zoom, have more candidates come through the pipeline, and then just funnel one-on-ones into Zoom and or at my final office at my physical office within 24 hours. The closer that you do your one-on-ones from your phone interview or group interview, we prefer group interviews because we're about volume and efficiency. The closer that you do your one-on-ones from the previous screening process, the higher your show-up rates are going to be, just like in a sales process. But the candidate experience is better on Zoom, right? Because they didn't drive to a physical office and get pitched the dream in a group environment. And then also there's more candidates showing up. The percentage is 10 to 20% higher for a show-up rate, which is good for the company. They get more recruiting opportunities. But anyways, that's just a side note. This client actually wanted to do things face-to-face. So they did a couple group interviews face-to-face for their 20 to max 30-minute presentations. So they did 1 week. They did 2 group interviews. That was max an hour. And then what they did is they funneled people into just quick 15-minute one-on-one meetings, and they were just looking to recruit volume. They weren't being too picky. Every client's a little bit different. Some clients want to do longer 30 to 60-minute one-on-one interviews, and some clients are like, hey, we're just looking to sign as many reps as possible. And there's everything in between. But for these guys, what they like is they like to, pitch the dream. They're really good at selling the opportunity, the industry, why it's unique from a sales career perspective, what the culture is like, the company story, the plans for growth in the future, the sales model, what reps are producing and making right now within the organization, what the advancement opportunity looks like, what the long-term growth opportunity looks like within the company. They pitch it really well, and they feel like they get candidates like 75% bought in, and they just funnel people into like 15 to 20-minute one-on-ones and then close who they close. And so because of the shorter one-on-ones in this case, which is not always the recommendation from our perspective, but it works for them, within a few hours of work, they were able to sign like 6 reps within that week. They actually did some of it in a group environment. So they did the group interview, they did Q&A at the end of the group interview, and just funneled the candidates that were like, hey, I want to rock and roll. And they funneled them into really quick one-on-ones and said, okay, let's sign you up for Monday. And whoever shows up to Monday shows up. And so they did a couple group interviews for 30 minutes each, right? That's an hour for the week. And then roughly a couple hours of one-on-ones for the week. And they signed 6 reps. 5, worst case 4 showed up on Monday, and they were actually overwhelmed from an onboarding perspective, so they paused. And so the reason that I recap on this process is a lot of smaller business owners. We typically help small business owners, although we have Inc. 5000 and Inc. 500 companies. 80% of our clients are small business owners. A lot of the times they just don't even recruit, partly because they don't know how to, and they don't have the time to from their perspective, but it's because their recruiting process is all messed up. It's not collapsed. In terms of ads, screening and scheduling, group interviews, and final interviews. It's all over the place from an ads perspective, a screening and scheduling perspective. They're typically doing phone interviews. If they're doing group interviews, they're still wasting too much time on the front end pre-group interview, and they're doing their final interviews for 45, 60 minutes. And therefore, they're like, man, it's such a pain to hire the amount of people that I need to hire. I'm just going to stay small. So that kind of model is how you collapse your recruiting time investment by 75%, get rid of phone interviews, and sign volume. And this process works regardless if you want to sign 100 reps a month, like some of our clients, or even a couple reps every other month, like some of our clients. The goal is to protect your time, to get in front of the right people, to close the right people, and to make that as efficient of a process as possible. Now, to follow this, from an onboarding perspective, if you want to recruit this type of volume, you just need to have the systems, which is another video, the systems to allow for the onboarding of volume, right? So when they sign the 6 reps, administratively, they get the agreements out, the welcome emails out. It's an organized process, so the rep knows how to show up on Monday, whether that's via Zoom or face-to-face. And when they show up on Monday, there's a funneling system through those first 1 to 2 weeks that funnels out the non-producers so they can focus on the high performers that are showing up with a good attitude and the work ethic. But hopefully this made sense. Hopefully you got value from this video. If you did, drop a like, subscribe, a comment, and we will look forward to the next one. Thanks.